Hey guys, it's Mike from Indie Development again, and this is part 2 of our tutorial series on making a simple match game. Last time we looked at, going over all of our pre-stuff about how we wanted it laid out, what we wanted it to look like, and some parts about how we were going to do positioning and things like that. So let's go ahead and let's get started here. Today we'll go ahead and look at setting up our declarations, go ahead and putting our regions in, and if we have time we might set up our timers, and then after that we will go to the next in the series. So let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio, File, New, Project, C#, Windows Form Application. You can call yours whatever you want. I'm just going to call mine Match 'em Up Game. Click OK, and you're going to have the basic design view. And of course, if we was doing it like we did last time, we could drag out whatever we wanted from here and put it onto our form, but we're actually not going to use this view whatsoever. And so we'll go ahead and right click on Form 1, View Code, and let's go ahead, and what we'll do is we'll set up our regions real quick. Now this isn't necessary and you don't have to do this, but I just use it, especially in bigger projects. Regions are really nice. I just use it to kind of separate my code and be able to quickly find some things and stuff like that. So I'll set up this one, and then inside here we want initialization, and then private methods. And these right here will be the only regions that we're actually working with in this series. One thing to notice is you do have to still keep this even though we're not using the designer view. And if you don't know where this is at, if you just click the little arrow here next to your Form 1, it's right here. So if you right click on the form1.designer.cs and click View Code, you'll notice that right here is where it's at. So it's just doing this stuff here. Now you notice this is a partial class, just as this is, so they rely on each other. So go ahead and we'll close that out. We won't be going back to that anymore, and let's go ahead and set up our declaration. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our fonts. So what kind of fonts do we need? Fonts. So we're going to need a font for just the default, whatever we put on the board to display something to the user, like the title of the game, number of attempts, correct, and stuff like that. So let's set up a default font. System.drawing font, and you want a new font family. We'll do Arial, and let's go ahead and set it to size 10, and we want the font style to be bold. And the reason we're going to bold it is because if you remember, like the title and any labels that we're actually going to see are pretty much just the title and then the number of attempts left and then the number of attempts that we have correct. So we'll go ahead and bold those because they kind of stand out to the user. Now the other thing we're going to need is the font to put onto our labels. Since we're not using images, we're going to use the Wingdings font, and we're going to put those characters onto the labels. We need to set up a font to do that. So font, we'll call it label font. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it matching font or whatever. System.drawing.font. A new font family, and I didn't capitalize my F. And we want Wingdings. We'll set these to 22 so they can kind of be seen a little bit easier, and what style we want is regular. So that right there will do it for the fonts that we're going to use for this program. Now what we're going to do now is some gameplay variables is what we'll be using. So our gameplay variables will be stuff like number of attempts, number of correct, pieces for how many pieces are on the board, and then pairs. So we'll go ahead and get these set up. Comment here first. Gameplay variables. So we want a number of attempts. We'll set that to 0 for now. We'll need a number correct. Pieces. We know how many columns, and it's always going to start with a 2 column, 2 row. So we will go ahead and set that up. And pairs. So what else we're going to need? We're going to have to actually have the way we're going to set the array up for the pieces. We'll have to actually have a for loop and then a for loop inside there. So we can go ahead and initialize those variables, so we don't have to initialize them later on. So we can go and do that. Int I equals 0 and j equals 0. We'll use I and j. Let's go ahead and we'll put the loop in random variables here. That'll help us get our pieces. And let's see. So I and j, we'll need a count. We'll need initial. And what the initial is going to be is like it's when it chooses. Remember what we did last time on a character map. So if you look here, the initial is going to be randomly chosen. So it's going to be between our range of 33 and 88. So let's say if the first random falls here, this is going to be the initial. So it'll be set to this value. So need an increment value. Then we'll need a min range, which is 33 we said. A max range, which you said is going to be 88. And then a increment value. Now this right here is what the max value can be that you want to go to for the random. So let me open this back up again. So on here, if you wanted the max to be from like if you anywhere from 1 to 5, which is probably what I'm going to be using. So the random would return like a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or 5, and that would be how far it increments before it goes to the next one, then the next one, and the next one, and so on. So let's use 5 for that. Okay, so other pieces like we went over before, we're going to have our layout stuff. So, and that was the form width, the form height, the piece width, piece height, which we said is going to be 45 by 45. Some other ones we could look at getting would be the left margin. And we're going to use 25, right margin, 25, top margin, 25, and bottom margin. Other than that, we needed a vertical and horizontal spacer. And now, some things we didn't go over last time would be how we're going to store, the pieces and the game labels and stuff like that. So we're going to put the pieces into a string array. Here. Okay. And then some labels we're going to be using during the gameplay, which will be on our board, will be the title, attempts, correct, and then the win and loss, like we had laid out before in our drawing here. The title, the attempts, number correct, and then the win and loss is going to be this label. Well, there'll be 2 of them. One will say, we win, one will say we lose, and it'll actually cover the board when the game's over. You won't see that, but like that. So let's go ahead and set those up. We said they were label title, attempts, win, and lose. Okay, and now a few labels that we didn't go over would be, let's say you got these 4 pieces here. The player clicks one of them. When they click this one, it's going to show what's there. Now we need a way to store that, so when they click on the next one and it shows, we can compare the two. And we're going to do that by actually making some labels to hold the values that they click on. So let's go ahead and do that. So label used to check the user matches, which would be first selection. We'll go ahead and set these to null now since they won't be holding anything yet. Okay. And now how are we going to put all the labels on the board for the matching pieces? So we're going to do that by doing this. So how are we going to put our match cards out there? It'll be like so. So right here's going to hold all our game labels, all the columns and the rows. Okay, now along with that we're going to need 4 other pieces, and those pieces are going to be the 2 timers. Like we said before, we'll need a timer for delay, so when you click this one it'll show, and then when you click this one we're going to need a timer to stop this one from disappearing if these matches don't match. That way you can see that they do match, or if they don't match you can see what you clicked on, so you can kind of put it in memory each of these pieces, you know what's in each slot, so then you can go to your next selection and try again. And you'll kind of see that when we get to it. If you don't put a delay timer on there, you click this one, you'll be able to see that one just fine, but as soon as you click that one it'll be gone. Both of them will just either disappear or go back to being in blank if they don't match. You won't have enough time to actually see what's under this label. So let's go ahead and we'll set up our timers. So the first one is going to be the delay timer. Just comment here. Use to delay. And that's going to be, we'll just call it delay. Now we also need a timer for once the game is either over because the player loses or wins, we're going to display that overlay. And we need to be able to have them see that long enough so they know they won or they lost or whatever, and then we can restart the board after that's displayed for a certain amount of time. So let's go ahead and set that up. And we'll call that one restart. Okay, so the other thing we need to do is the random. So alright, so now we have that one. And the last one is the boolean to see if the game is over or not. So go ahead and set that to false initially, and this is going to be our declarations right here. So looks like we're about 13-14 minutes into the video, so let's go ahead and let's set up our timers real quick, and then after that we'll go ahead and call it for this section, and we'll pick up where we leave off next time. So let's go down here into the form 1 and let's set up our timers real quick. So we want to start the delay equals new timer. We want to set it to be it's enabled to be false because we don't want it to be running right now. So, and then we need to set this interval. So how long do we want those, once the user clicks those 2 pieces, to show, to be able to look at them before it either makes them disappear or if it's not a correct match, it'll turn them back to not being visible. If it is a correct match, then it'll turn it to where they just disappear off the board. So we'll use 550 for that. And you can kind of play around and tweak this to whatever you want. So now what we need to do is we need to set up the event handler for when this ticks. So that tick plus equals your system dot event handler. You want to use this dot delay tick. Now this is going to turn red right now, but we're actually going to make this method in just a second. First thing we're going to do is just copy this, and we're going to paste right below it, and we are going to change delay here to restart. So we just copy restart, double click delay, just make it restart underscore tick. Now real quick before we end, let's go ahead and we'll set up these event handlers, and then we will move on to the next in the series. Okay, so the first one, what we're going to do is I'm going to go down to our private methods here. Private void delay tick object sender event args e. Now what we're going to do is we're only going to let this run one time. So the first thing you want to do is after it runs a full interval, we need it to stop. So okay, so what are we going to do during this timer? We are going to check the two possible cards that the player has clicked on and see if they match. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, in order to do that, we're going to do if first selection dot text equals second selection dot text. That means that they do match. We're going to clear the matches. And then we're going to increment the number correct. Okay. So num correct plus plus. Alright, now what we're going to do, what if they don't match? So else. You need to reset the text to both of them to the null strings. That way, reset text of both to null strings. Now what this means is they don't match, so we need to go ahead and just clear them out. So, well, the text anyway. First selection dot text equals and second selection dot text. Okay. And now since they didn't get it right, we don't want to increment the number correct. We want to actually take one away from the number of attempts left. Okay. Now we want to go ahead and set the first and second selection back to null. Trying to comment as we go along. Hopefully it slows me down a little bit, and because some people have had some feedback to where I try to go a little bit too fast, so hopefully this allows you guys to really look at what we're doing here and help you to understand what we're doing. Now what we want to do is we want to update the labels, since we've either changed the number correct or number of attempts. So we will update the attempts and correct labels. And then we need to update the correct. Okay. Now if all the pairs are matched, like if that was the last two pairs that were on the board and they click it, then we know that the game will be over and they won. But if they didn't get a correct match and they only had one attempt left, which means it would actually put it to a 0 for the number of attempts left, then we need to go ahead and make the game be over and let them know that they lost. So let's go ahead and set that up. So if all the pairs matched, so if the number correct equals the total pairs on the board, we want to show the win label. We want to set the game to be over. And then we want to restart the game. Or sorry, we want to call the restart timer, which we haven't set up yet. So this is going to kind of it's going to look like it's broken, but it's not. And you'll see why we're calling the restart timer here in a second. Okay, so now if the number of attempts reaches 0, or somehow, if I don't know, shouldn't ever be able to, but in case it gets below 0, we'll put that in too. So if the user runs out of attempts, if the number of attempts is less than or equal to 0, we want to let them know that they lost, so we will show the lose label. And then we will set the game to being over. And then we will want to also call the restart timer. Now see, remember what the restart timer does is it sets how long they can see this label. So, and a few other things here. So let's see. Okay, so now with that coded, let's go ahead and we'll code a restart timer here. And the restart timer, what it's going to do is it's going to be in charge of clearing our board and either restarting the same board if they lost, or going ahead and incrementing the amount of columns and rows and creating a new board off of that. So basically what it is you just create a board with either the same number of columns and rows, or you go ahead and times it by whatever you're going to modify it by and make a new one game. So it actually looks like a new level's load, but even if they lose, it's not the same board redone with the pieces in the same places. It's a new board, it's just the same amount of pieces on the board. So what we need to do for that is let's go ahead and get it started here. So we do a private void restart tick, and the way you know what to name these is if you look up here when we did our timers, the event handler, delay tick, and restart tick. So restart tick, and then it takes an object, sender event args e. So we need to do the same thing we did for the other one. So So after it goes through the full interval, we need to stop. We don't want to run more than once. Alright, so how are we going to know which one to display? The way we're going to know which one to, or if they've won or lost, is very simple. This is why we made two labels, one for the lose and one for the win. So if the game is over and the player has lost, and now how we check for that is if game over, and as you see here, we have game over, set it to true. So if the game over is true and the label lose.visible, which you can see here, label.lose.visible we set to true. So if both of these are true, see, this one will still be false since we didn't win. We only put this one visible. So game over and label lose is visible. We want to simply we'll need to remove all the pieces. Now this is something that we'll go ahead and we'll do the clear board in this one as well, so you can kind of understand what we're doing here. We need to remove the pieces, the labels from the board, because if not, what's going to happen is, yeah, you can make new labels and put them on top of them. Those old labels are still going to be there, so we need to make sure we remove them from the board. Clear board, which we have not wrote yet, but we will. And then we need to create the next board, which will be the same thing. Create a new board with the same rows and columns as the previous board. And the way we're going to do that is just simply create board, which we have not wrote yet, but we will next series. That's going to be kind of more, probably take a whole video in itself. So create board, pass it the columns and the rows, and then we're going to return. Okay, else if the game is over and the player has won. Now if they won, we want to go ahead and increase the difficulty a little bit, but now we're going to do that by increasing the number of pieces on the board. So it's a very simple way to increase the difficulty. So else if game over and label win is visible. Oh, sorry, we don't need to put that. Just label underscore win visible. We're going to remove the labels from the board. Clear board. And then what we're going to do is we're going to increase the pieces on the board. And what we'll do is we can come up here and let's see, we'll just do modify board value, and we'll give it a 2. Instead of going down here and just putting 2 there, this way you can just come up here, and if you want to increase it by whatever amount you can, but we'll use 2 here. And I'll show you what we're going to do with the 2. So let's see, we want to create a new board with the new amount of pieces. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a board, but we're going to do the amount of columns currently that was on the last board and times it by what do we call that? Modify board. And then we're also going to do the number of rows as the same as the last board and modify board. So if we're doing it by 2, so if you had 2 columns, 2 rows, it's going to be 4 columns, 4 rows this next time around. And we will return. Okay, so let's go ahead and real quickly we'll write the clear board because there's not much to it. So private void clear board, and that should go away now. Okay, clear board's right. So we want to loop through the game labels. And for each label, we'll call it L in game labels. And we'll comment here what we're actually doing. The board. If you do not remove the labels, they will just be set to not visible, and you will be adding labels on top of visible labels if you win, or if you lose the old labels. See, I think I also lose a visible one, so it'll be both viz and the ones. And the labels. The viz ones will be seen and are still to be clicked in peace. So in other words, the old board is still there and it's still able to be used, so we don't want that to happen. So all you gotta do is you loop through the game labels, which if you look up here, and I'm sorry if you guys hear the rooster out there crowing. I live on a farm, but our game labels are going to be stored here, all the game labels, and we're going to loop through every game label in there, and we're going to clear the board. So controls.remove L. So this will actually clear the whole board, and then we can regenerate a new board, and those old pieces will be gone. So that's where we're going to leave off for here, and in the next part of the series we're going to actually write this create board method, and it's going to be a little bit bigger, and also we'll go into going ahead and finishing out this form 1 right here. And the form 1 was going to be with it is we're going to set up the different labels, the sizes and different things like that, and actually add them to the form. So until then guys, I will see you then.